I appreciate the time today, and I would like to start by saying I agree with you. Yeah, I actually, about 6 months ago, 8 months ago, was at a 7th grade project discussion in Spring Branch ISD. Little 7th graders have to do their little end-of-year project. One of my friends is a teacher there, and they were doing it on flood control for Houston. And what are the solutions? So they go, and being little 7th graders, they go and research it all. And then they come up with the solutions, and they have to write them up, put them in the presentation, give the presentation. And my friend had asked me to come judge. And the winning presentation, by the way, those 4 girls, I would have hired them on the spot. Frankly, I told them, you guys have a job offer as soon as you graduate from college. You're done. I don't need to see any more. Because at Shell for 4 years, I didn't see presentations that good. And to be honest, the best solution, the only solutions, you got to straighten the outflows. You got to get enough volume out. But then that's been known for a long time. It just costs money and political power to do so. So look, that's not what I'm talking about, and the only reason I'm not talking about that is because I'm running for federal office, not state, and that's something that I leave to our local candidates to discuss and go through. But I definitely sympathize, and I appreciate you bringing the point up. So my name is Neal Dikeman. I'm running for the United States Senate. I am the Libertarian nominee in 2018. I'm standing before you because I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. They are my cause. It's Clara and Gwen. After the last election cycle, as a lot of people, I was not happy with the way the electoral process has been run. I've got a ballot sitting in front of me that doesn't always have a choice on it. I'm literally only one candidate to vote for a large chunk of the races on my ballot. This year in Texas, 1 out of 4 races, 1 out of 4 of state and federal office races in the state of Texas in 2018 only have 1 candidate. That's ridiculous. I mean, come on, people. It's 2018. This is not the way the world is supposed to work. That would be 1 out of 3 if it weren't for the Libertarian Party. Right? So choice, voter choice, y'all's call. Reason 1, I'm running. Reason 2 was real simple. I get tired of elected officials kicking the can down the road on issue after issue to my 3-year-old and 5-year-old. They don't know what the Senate is, but they don't deserve to have to deal with past generations' costs, because the past generation wants to put their head in the sand. We've been doing this on the federal debt and deficit for decades now. My college professors, they were writing on becoming debt and deficit problems, becoming Medicare, Social Security, and Medicare entitlement liability problems before I got to college. They were still writing on them when I was in college. They were writing the prescriptions. They were delivering those prescriptions to the U.S. Senate. Decades later, nothing's happened. And now those debt problems are showing up. We're sitting on about $340,000 per American family, if you put it in human terms, in liabilities at the federal level. That's double the American mortgage. Okay? That starts to get to be real money, no matter how rich you think you are. A decent chunk of that is the nominal federal debt that we talk about, $14 trillion. About half of it is Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid liabilities owed to our retirees that we simply haven't. We've basically been underpricing and overpromising for several decades and refusing to fix the solution. But regardless, it's real money. Today, we are borrowing 20 cents of every dollar that we spend. And I'm sorry, you can't do that forever. It just doesn't work. The response from the right when our Republican Party pushed through the tax cut and spending increase combo this last year was it's okay. We're going to grow our way out of the problem. And what I got to tell you is that logic might have worked some in 1986 when marginal tax rates were high and higher than they are now, and when the debt level was lower than they is now. But they don't work as well today, and they sure don't work when Congress's own accountants, the Congressional Budget Office, says, hey guys, we've counted up. Over the next decade, by the time my little 5-year-old gets to high school, you're going to borrow another $12 trillion, $100,000 per family. And the entire economy is only going to grow $10 trillion. You literally cannot grow your way out of debt if you are out borrowing the entire economy's growth. It just doesn't work. The math isn't functional. So, I mean, I'm a budget guy, I'm a numbers guy. I've founded 7 companies, I've been CFO multiple times. And I cannot fathom what these guys are doing. Right? Yeah, they see the same math I do. My college professor literally wrote the book on this and delivered it to Senate subcommittees in 1996. Yeah, and today we're still talking about the exact same issues. Right? The last 6 years, since each of my opponents, Congressman O'Rourke and Senator Cruz, have been in office, every category, every single category of federal spending has gone up every single year. Now, just to put in perspective all that it would have taken to do their job, if federal spending across the board had just stopped the day they got into office, no cuts, just not increased, we would not have a deficit right now. We've increased federal spending by about $600 billion, which is about the same level as our deficit, which is about the same level as our total defense spending, which is about the same level, $600 billion or so, as the current gap between what we pull in for Medicare and Social Security and what we send out, which is about the same level as the entire rest of the government. So when Senator Cruz gets up and announces after he's already passed the spending bills and the tax cut bills, he announces, hey, you know, I'm trying to cut down this little spending here, and it's $15 billion we're saving you. Dude, that's not rounding error in what you just dumped on us. It's like my church, and I got an amazing church. I go to Spring Branch Presbyterian just down the road here. A church my family's been at for 3 generations. I'm the treasurer, and we do budget seasons right now, as some of you guys that are on the finance committees at churches will know. And so we do budget season, and in budget season, send out a little form and say, all right, each team, please put in what you'd like. And then budgets, if they're coming in high, we give you a little more. If they're coming in low, I say, hey, guys, we gotta cut back a little bit, or else we gotta borrow from take out of our reserves. And every year, each team asks about a few percent more. Because they have missions to do, they have things that they think need to be done. Right. And then I say, guys, but our funding's going to come in about a point or 2 less. So I need you each to take a point or 2, 1 or 2% out. And then property says, well, light bill can't get cut. Yeah. Personnel says, I don't want to let anybody go. I want to keep the same staffing levels. And I want to get cost of living increases. And by the time those items are defined, everyone else would have to cut 25% just to balance it out. Because that's 80% of my budget. That's what Congress does. They said, well, we can't touch defense, we can't touch entitlements, we can't touch the non-discretionary, we can't touch all these other things. Guys, what's left is smaller than the whole deficit. You can't close the red ink if you don't do across the board. Unless you want to push through a tax increase. Do you want to do that? Oh no, we don't want to do that. Great. Then you can't just ignore all the big items on your budget. It's basic budget. Every corporation in America knows that. Every family in America knows that. Every church, every state, every nonprofit. But somehow 535 people in Washington who are supposed to be our best and brightest with several $7 million of staff in between, for each of them, can't figure out how to do a budget. Notwithstanding the fact that they don't actually pass budgets, we've been running on continuing resolutions since before I was voting. Right? We need 2-year budget cycles. We need zero-based budgeting. No more looking at last year's and saying up or down. Look at the scope we've told you to do. Look at the items that I've asked you to get done, and then build me a budget from the ground up every 2 years. If there's ever another continuing resolution, there's not a congressman, a congressional staff, or anyone in the legislative branch who ought to get paid until there's a 2-year budget in place. I mean, come on, we got to do something so that these guys remember that it's not their money. This is the issue that got me excited to run. It's not actually the one that's punching on anyone's list this year. In fact, it's like number 17 on the list of what Texans care about. I don't understand that. I honestly don't understand how job number 1, pass your budget. Yeah, and church administration may be the boring committee, and maybe budgeting is the boring committee in the Senate, but it's the first one that's got to get done before you can move on to missions. It doesn't matter what you want to spend money on. It doesn't even matter what tax level you think is appropriate. You still got to live within your means. So this is what got me excited enough to spend months of my life tilting in a windmill, because there's nobody else left to do this. The Republican Party, the deficit hawks, when I grew up, it's gone. Each year, for the last 6 years, doesn't matter who's in charge. Every category of federal spending, every single one went up. We're up 20% in those last 6 years. Is your income up 20%? The government's isn't. That's why we're bleeding red ink. So I'd like to stop and take questions, because otherwise I will go on to the next topic and I will talk and talk and talk until maybe get something out. Yeah. So let's move on to what topics are interesting to y'all, or we can take questions on the fiscal ones as well.
I have a question on the fiscal area. I think when you're talking to Tea Party people, you know, we believe in fiscal responsibility and limited government. How do you address the entitlement program problem in a way that's palatable to voters?
That is a crucial question, because you literally can't solve the budget deficit without dealing with it. And it's been the third rail for decades. Yeah, my college professors up at A&M, the Private Enterprise Research Center, they've been writing on this. If you want the real answer, not just a couple of sound bites here, go to perk.tama.edu, go find their, some of their policy prescriptions. They go through all the details. You're not going to like some of them. You will like some of the others, but they lay out, here are the different levers that can be done. I'm going to tell you the one that, the 2 or 3 that I think we ought to keep in our minds conceptually. The first one, it's kind of like, what's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best time? Right now. Yeah. So what my professors kept saying, guys, this is much cheaper to solve with very small tweaks to the program the earlier you do it. So every year matters. Every day matters. We hemorrhage cash in these programs. So the real answer is we've been
And we know that.
And we
know that we're hemorrhaging.
We know that. They can see it. It's just ready.
And they still do nothing.
Right. Which and that's not a problem if it got cheaper tomorrow. But it doesn't. It's getting more expensive tomorrow. So, right, the first thing you got to do is do it now or do it yesterday. Yeah. The second thing you got to do is you got to say, look, all right, as long as the government's bleeding red ink everywhere else, this is an existential crisis. If we can close the budget gaps while we do this, we got more time. My math says if the federal government simply cuts spending across the board 1% a year for the next 5 years, 99, 98, 97, 96, 95, not what we'd all like to do, but should be a workable plan. All we need to do is close the entitlement funding gap, get it from where it is to 0 within 7 to 10 years, and we can handle the debt loads we've got. If we don't do both those at once, it becomes pretty hefty on the other side. The real answer for, if you kind of look at the model of what makes the entitlement liabilities a problem for us, this is a pension system, but we're not running a pension model. So the rate of return we get is basically the federal bond rate, the long bond, and that's not very high, which means you got to put in more cash. First way to reduce your liability is to get your returns up. Yeah. Only way to functionally do that is private accounts. We've known that, but we haven't had the will to do that. So I'm not going to have the government go investing in the S&P 500. You can, but that's not what I want them to do. Right? So if we really want to get the liability down, returns got to go up, which means the cash has to go into private hands in order to spend it. Okay, that's one. 2, we have been underpricing and overpromising. The least politically palatable, but the quickest way, and the way we will have to solve the problem if we don't start solving early, is, raise the prices, i.e. those taxes, or reduce the benefits. That's what we're trying to avoid. The sooner we get this fix in place, the less likely we're going to have to do that. But my fear is within a decade, there are not going to be other levers that we can pull. So we're going to have to hit those big 2, because those are the ones that can be moved fast. And that's what they're going to move to when they run out of time and ideas. All right, but remember, private accounts, people talk about it as a kind of a get-out, opt-out type question. They talk about it as a small government type question. To me, it's not. To me, it's a pension returns question. The only way to get high enough returns to bring the liabilities down are give the private individuals the right to invest that money. So, but there's another big, massive level, because a big chunk of this is not just Social Security, it's Medicare and Medicaid. They're the big 2 together. So technology is generally a deflationary industry. There's a reason your cell phone and camera cost less today than they did 2 decades ago, and the reason you get more bang for the buck even though they cost less than 2 decades ago. Yeah. Healthcare should be deflationary. It's a technology-based industry, but it's not. It's been outgrowing GDP at a rate of about 2 to 1 for the last 30 years. Part of our liability problem is, you know, remember that commitment we've made? We make the commitment and say, I'm going to deliver you help in 30 years. I'm going to deliver you health care. Yeah. But if the cost of that unit of health care we're delivering keeps going up at twice the economy, you're done. Stick a fork in it. You can't close the gap. If we get healthcare costs going the right direction, deflationary, that gap collapses in months because the back end squeezes. If you do that at the same time that you can divide the program and put new folks into and as many people that have been in it before as you can get into a private accounts program and change the returns, we can wipe these debts out. I should say, wipe these future liabilities, these commitments out by changing the model. It's the same pension model, just use it for us rather than against us. So how are we going to do that? So healthcare is my other big favorite topic. I'm going to keep talking until you all stop me. So if someone wants to ask a different question, get your hand in the air. Healthcare is my other big favorite topic. Yeah, Democrats have had their run at it, and costs continue to spiral. The Republicans have had their run at it, and the only idea they can seem to come up with is shoot what the Democrats did. But the reason they're not able to push through a solution is because nobody's proposing an actual solution. And somehow, in 2018, we've got this concept of single payer, which was a patently bad idea in the 1970s, and is worse now as the only idea at the table. It's poisoning our system. Here's the real question you need to ask about your health care. And when we get to how we get this thing to be deflationary. Why exactly is your health care tied to your job?
Government caused it.
The government caused it. There's no reason on the planet that your health care should be tied to your job. And in fact, for the vast majority of Americans, your health care isn't tied to your job. Your employer is your health insurance provider, because the vast majority of companies are actually self-insured. And Blue Cross or Aetna or whoever is literally just a processor. But the company is doing the insurance. Then they go buy a stop loss from a different insurance company to limit their exposure on the back end. But when you send in that bill, that goes to HR. And HR is writing the check. And HR is seeing your data. They're actually providing your health care. This makes no sense. In fact, it's morally bankrupt. Your government shouldn't be involved in your health care, and your employer sure as hell shouldn't be involved in your health care. So why are they? In the 1940s, in World War II, government put wage controls on labor. Because we were at war, they didn't want to have problems getting people to join the war effort. And they were afraid of price gouging, that sort of thing. Fine, temporary measure, that's what they said. Great. The big corporations, which were heavily unionized at the time, said, hang on, how am I going to compete for talent with these little companies if I can't outpunch them on salary? And the government said, oh, well, it's okay. Temporarily, there's this new thing. It's called health insurance. And at the time, tax rates were real low, so this doesn't cost very much. And health insurance was not very widespread. So we're going to let y'all deduct that, and then we're going to let y'all give it to your employees as a freebie without them having to pay income tax on it. Right? And we're still living with that bad corporate tax giveaway today. In fact, what that did is it grew up an industry of insurance companies selling to your employer. You were no longer the customer for insurance. The employer with 20,000 employees was. So how are you going to compete if you're an insurance company? Because insurance is just insurance. It's just, it's a risk pool. Ideally, they're all priced pretty much the same because, well, hell, it's a risk pool. Unless your actuary is stupid and that one's smart. So they said, oh, I got a new thing. We're going to vertically integrate, and we're going to go get our own doctors and hospitals. Well, we're not going to necessarily buy them and put them on our payroll. That was the Kaiser model, which is actually a useful, viable model, one company working to get all the costs down. Instead, all these other insurance companies said, no, we're going to go sign them all up. We're going to set up the supply chain. We're going to be in the doctor insurance business. Next time you guys need a specialist or have to find a new doctor, where do you go? You go to your insurance company's website, and you say, hey, which doctor is in your network? So these insurance companies signed up a network, then went into your employer and sold your employer on their network is better than the other guy's network. So now, the doctors and hospitals do not work for you. That's why you get lousy customer service when it comes to billing. That's why they sit there, they don't ask you, what do you need? They say, well, here's what I can do for you. Because they work for the insurance company who works for your employer, who is taking your health costs straight out of your paycheck. Right? Or, yes, sir.
I want to switch gears.
Yes, sir.
How many libertarians will it take to be elected to Congress, both House and Senate, to actually make change happen?
One.
Really? Now tell me how that
Let's do some simple logic. All right. Most important issue in the country right now, most politically charged issue in the country right now. Supreme Court. Immigration might actually be it, but I have an angle here. Right. Supreme Court. Why is the Supreme Court politically charged right now?
Because it's changing to the right side.
Because there are 4 right, 4 left, and the one guy who was the swing vote is no longer there. Right? So who determines who's going to get in the Supreme Court this time?
President.
President and now the Senate.
And the Senate.
Right? In the Senate, why are we having a fight over this? Because it's split. And there are basically 3 senators with all the power, and that's who hundreds of millions of dollars is going into talking to. Right? As long as we are polarized like we are today, and part of my goal as a libertarian is to wreck that, rewrite the coalition so you don't have to choose between a pair of bad coalitions anymore. But as long as we're polarized, the swing vote has all the power.
So you can build coalitions.
Absolutely, I can build coalitions. Absolutely.
Okay, so what makes your effort any different than Ross Perot? Because he spent billions of dollars.
That is a great question. Now, the main difference, after Ross Perot changed the course of the election and changed the course of politics, he didn't build anything. He was in for Ross Perot. He was mad, and he wanted to make a point. And he made his point, and then he got off the stage. I'm running as a libertarian, not independent, for a reason. Number 1, libertarian views are my views. Number 2, you need to build something. Politics, like life, is a participatory sport, and you don't do anything alone. Libertarian does not mean anything. Right? I am running to help provide air cover. I'm going to get my butt kicked by a big government lawyer who's masquerading as a small government conservative and the most left-wing liberal in the state of Texas, because I want to build something for you guys. I want you to be the swing vote. It's actually not me in the Senate that's the swing vote that matters. It's you guys. Because the moment you change a race, one time, State House, State Senate, U.S. House, U.S. Senate, what do you think the Republican and Democrat parties are going to do in their primaries the next time around? Once they realize that they actually lost a race from the middle. If I don't win, but we swap this race, which we're going to do, it's the Texas Tribune, Capital Tonight with Queen of Clean, they've already come out saying, looks like the race is going to be inside, margin of victory going to be inside my vote count. Libertarian voters, the people with libertarian values, are going to determine who wins. One way or the other, that's going to happen. Once that does, these guys need to start being more afraid of you guys in the general election than their echo chambers in their primaries. And when that happens, we rewrite the coalitions. Even if I lose, you win. That's why I'm doing this. Because Ross Perot, he didn't do that. He didn't make them afraid of the general, because the Reform Party was just him. The Libertarian Party is not Neal Dikeman. In 5 years, you will not remember my name. I can promise you that. I'm just not that pretty. But you will remember the Libertarian Senate candidate who stood up here in front of you. You will remember that our ideas were not on the fringe. They cut across party lines, and they were not crackers. And we will have an opportunity to deliver your vote and make an impact in election after election after election. Role of third parties for 200 years in American politics, not an independent candidate. The role of third parties has been to make the main parties listen, bring them back to heel when they're out of step. I would argue the Tea Party's problem, the Tea Party's mistake. The Tea Party's too far to one side, single issues, right? We rewrote primaries. You guys rewrote primaries in this country, but you haven't forced the rewrite of the coalitions in the middle. That's what needs to happen. Across the aisle, force the coalitions to rewrite. Doesn't matter who in Texas if you go through my policy stack rank, you will find more Texans believe in my policy stack than believe in Beto O'Rourke's or Ted Cruz's. The only reason I do not win this election is because you guys do not think I can. I have a better track record. That's why I'm running for Senate, because somebody needs to stand up to these guys who have the track record and the skills and the policies to get it done. I have a better track record. On the debate stage, I would rip them to shreds. They just do not have very good policies, and frankly, they're just not very good on stage. Watch them, they're not smiling, they're scared. Yeah, Ted Cruz on national TV last night, for the first time ever in American political history, called himself a libertarian. He called himself by the name of one of the other candidates on his ballot. We've got him rattled for a pittance, for a siren song, running on smoke and fumes, running on a shoestring budget. Why? Because I founded 7 startups, guys. I've never been afraid of an 800-pound gorilla. That's what life is as a startup. It just doesn't matter. The bigger they are, the more stuck in their ways they are, and the easier they are to take down.
Neal,
Yes, sir.
what you're saying is fine, I understand where you're coming from, but here's my question. You're not going to win. No one else can go in and share your ideas. So with that in mind, how long do we have?
What do you mean by how long? And what's your name,
The
sir?
country, Joe and Ann.
Joe.
How long do we have?
How long do we have?
The country, the United States, before it collapses.
Our country's not going to collapse.
Okay.
But actually, I believe in you guys. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe in you guys. One person can make a difference over and over and over again. It's always, if you look at tech startups, all the way through politics, it's one person and only one person that makes the difference. It's one founder. These big Silicon Valley, these big tech hubs, political change itself is always one person. It only takes one. It may not be me, but it might be you. So I'm not worried about the country falling apart. I'm just worried about you getting in the game. Yes, sir.
What's your opinion of border security and building wall?
Look, our current policy does not work for the right. It does not work for the left. It is literally, and it doesn't work for our economy. It's literally a mashup of really bad ideas for 30 years. The grand bargain has been on the table in Congress for 2 decades, and it involves some combination of better enforcement of the laws we keep on our books and more legal immigration pathways that are better defined, including some sort of pathway that allows us to actually get workers into the country without having to put them on the citizenship path. That grand bargain, and nobody here, including myself, will be perfectly happy with whatever the grand bargain finally gets decided. But right now, the Democratic Party is trying to drag the Republicans through the mud on a demographic shift on this issue, so they do not want to get the grand bargain done. And the Republican Party is fighting a retrenched warfare on that issue and does not want to get the grand bargain done. And we keep talking about this same issue, the same way we've been talking about it since I started voting. So this is one that needs to get done. It's a trade issue. Yeah, why exactly do we have factories on the Mexican side of the border or the Canadian side of the border? Why are they not in Texas? Right? It's immigration. That's bad immigration because the Mexican worker can't come across the border to work and go home at night, and vice versa. Right?
So you wouldn't build a wall?
So I think a wall was great when the Chinese did it in the 1400s. I think it's just a really bad idea to do. I think it's a waste of money. If you don't solve the fundamental supply and demand problems on both sides of the border, all that wall is going to do is an expensive place for people to figure out another way to get around. It's not going to deliver the solution we think it is. And then after we spend the money and build it, and immigration is still an issue, what are we going to do? Oh, what's next? We just built the wall. The wall should fix it. If you don't solve the demand problem, we got companies here. We are short employees in this country. We have more job ads out every month than there are new jobs created. Every month. Right? We can't run our ag industry in Texas without immigration, without migrant workers. We're not set up for it. We don't have the bodies. If we think we're going to solve the Medicare and Social Security problem with the aging population set that we've got by ourselves, without being able to stabilize flow, the flow of new workers into the system, either from an increase in the natural birth rate or immigration, it's got to come somewhere. Otherwise, we're going to be in the same mess that China's about to be in, where they go gray right at the same time they hit the middle income trap, and all this Chinese miracle hits the wall. We're going to be in the same mess Japan is, where they've been, with a massive load of debt, and not enough workers to keep growing our economy for 30 years.
Don't you think it intertwined, that Medicare and Social Security issue is
Yes.
an issue with immigration?
Yes. Yeah, and
So why not, I mean, to me, the borders are hard, but I agree, the immigration rules have to change, but they're all intertwined.
so and that's actually one of the core of my messages. Most of these issues are not actually single issues. You really can't talk about the border if you don't talk about the entitlement programs, right? Because that's like the stressor that gets a lot of folks mad, about the immigration issue, right? So if we don't do it holistically, and these guys, they just pass little band-aids. It's like, okay, manufacturing, business, right? You have widget machine A, machine B, machine C, machine D. We've got the defect rate is too high out the backside. So first thing you do is you put a quality control person in place and you measure your defects. See what's happening here. Then, stupid people add band-aids to the back end. Expensive band-aids that don't fix the problem. Because in any flow, any process flow, the problem is a root cause somewhere up here in machine A or B or in your inputs. So you metric there and you fix here. Our government has been trying to stick more machines and band-aids on the back end to fix a machine A problem or a systems flow problem that they don't have the skills, brains, or political willpower to address. And you're right. You're asking the right questions, and then you hit on the right answer. They're actually interconnected. So it's only useful for you to talk to me about what I think about border security once you know what I think about Medicare and Medicaid.
But the law
Okay.
is like triage, you gotta go law and stop and triage.
So again, Band-Aid. And what we did in the 80s, the reason, when we did our amnesty program, that's gotten people so mad ever since then, because that was a Band-Aid and we didn't fix here. The walls, 30 years from now, if we only do a wall, we will find that we just shot our wad, we spent a whole bunch of money, we pissed off half our country, and the half that wanted the wall is still not going to be happy with the results because nobody went and looked at machine A.
The immigration issue is important for a couple of reasons. Your answer on this. I said 43 million Social Security cards or numbers have apprehended by people who don't earn anything whatsoever. They've got them when they're collecting benefits. How is that correct?
So, this gets into one of my other favorite topics, which is privacy. Have you ever had your identity stolen?
Sure.
Right? A whole bunch of people have. Have you ever called the government who produced and when they steal your identity, they don't actually steal your identity. You're still you. You're good. But what they stole was a Social Security number in order for them to gain either the IRS system or an immigration system or a work system or something else.
But most of them being stolen from newborn babies
But
who
look at
maybe
how,
don't even have a Social Security number, but they created one.
So, but that's my whole point. Yeah, I get where you're going, but in reality, the only reason that's a thing is because we've put all these other programs on top of that number, and our government has failed to figure out how to protect the privacy of its own little system that it put in place. It's not your problem, it's the government's problem, right? Yeah, so you can't work without a Social Security number. I can't walk in, I literally cannot come to your office and say, hey, I need to work. And you say, great, and employ me, without going through a whole bunch of red tape. So they go steal somebody's number, some baby's number, to go do that, because they gotta work, right? Yeah, we need to fix this holistically. Privacy rights and how we do, how we enable you to work, and whether you're here to work on a citizenship track or just here to work and then go home, we got to create those pathways. We run every single person who comes into this country, whether it's for work or a businessman coming over for a conference or a tourist or a student, on basically a tourist visa. Yeah, it's a mashup. So you're touching on a good issue, but it's part of the same holistic problem. We're not going to solve that by saying let's keep people from stealing more Social Security numbers. We got to solve that by fixing the underlying programs so they work. Frankly, if Medicare and Social Security, if you go to my healthcare program, my million-payer healthcare program, unwind that tax deal, make the insurance companies work and the doctors work directly for you, Medicare and Medicaid are not a problem anymore. And so you're frankly not going to care. And if that's the case, pressure's going to come off the immigration issue. But until we fix those, you're not going to be happy about anything I can tell you to do on the Social Security numbers and the Medicare problem and the immigration problem, because they're interlinked.
I guess I go back to my other question, how long do we have?